So can we get a little bit meta right now? Like I'm sure you might have similar conversations on your Discord, but one of the things like I find I'm talking with a lot with people on here is like this whole concept of balancing up like the creative and intuitive mind and the technical mind while also trying to learn things and master new technology, and how you like balance going between these different brains and kind of harmonizing them together. You mentioned that you've got a degree in production. When we were chatting yesterday, I saw you had, or was it actually on For Producers, you have like instruments all over through the house. So in your whole career as a musician and a producer and everything, have you kind of discovered any particular mindsets that really help you going between all those different legs of the stool that you need as an artist in the contemporary era?
Yeah. I think that luckily I feel really grateful that I, starting out in LA, basically was like, all right, I'm going to be a singer, and I'm known right now to like my network of composers and producers that I know because I have a home studio and I can record. So for me, like now when I'm just trying to sing and like write at the piano, if I'm not recording it, it actually feels really unnatural because it's become such a, you see my mic arm, right? Like this is a manly reference cardioid mic. This is my like vocal microphone. And it's just, I've created my room to feel just like extensions, and it doesn't really matter if it's like, an acoustic instrument, or if it's a computer, or if it's like an analog drum machine or a synth or my piano. I've very much so, as you want to in a studio, made everything ready to go at all times. So it feels like everything is just an extension of my brain. So I think, the only way to get to that is when you're comfortable with the technology. And that can be really daunting for a lot of players, especially right now. They're all being, turned into home studio people when they didn't really anticipate that. So, I don't know if that really answers your question, but I think I've just tried to make it all this one seamless thing where like my guitar isn't really that different than my, BeatStep Pro controller to me.
Great. And I mean, in terms of like getting to that point now, like if we kind of rewound to say like either when you're just starting or you just come out of like doing your degree, or, when you first moved into your house now and you're like setting up this room, was it a case of you'd be trying to do something and then just like bang up against a bit of a ceiling and then figure out like, oh, I need to solve this thing, and then would you rabbit hole on that, or would you kind of reroute your creative energies into another direction, say at some point I'm going to come back and learn how to do X, Y, Z?
Yeah, I think, I think that I, for a long time, really just said I was a singer. So I didn't really wrote at piano and I sang. So like I was keeping myself from those walls coming down. And I think that, there came a point where I was like, all right, like you need to learn Pro Tools properly. And you know it because you studied it, but you felt all these pressures and all these things. Like I very much so felt like an outsider in that program. It was extremely male dominated. It was quite sexist at the time. I think it's gotten better, but that is the culture that we sort of live in this tech side of music. And so I think a lot of it became me letting go of my pride of being like, don't let them know you don't know this. So And then actually being like, I don't actually know this as well as I could. Let me like really start to learn in a way that doesn't feel like because I don't know it, I'm bad or I'm less than. And it's more of like, I'm going to learn. And I think also normalizing that for other people has been really powerful for me, and like almost healing that within myself of like, hey, it's okay if you don't know. Like everybody doesn't know something and then they know it. And then that's how they know it, So I think it kind of just became slowly me starting. I don't even know what my first little synth thing was, but there are still pedals. I don't even know really what they do, but I know my ears are good at deciding what I think sounds cool with the sounds I get from them. So,
so you kind of were basically able to like, in a way, like fully adopt beginner's mind and just say, you know what, I'm just going to bash around. Yeah. And when you were like trying to learn these things, though, was it, I think there's a thing sometimes where people get some technology and it's like, I want to make like something that's better than Mode Selector, or I'm going to make like I'm going to make Beyonce's next single, and they just like download their copy of Ableton Live and then feel frustrated that that's not immediately how it sounds.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So do you have advice for people based on your own experience about like going through that. Have you heard that? There's a famous talk out there called I think it's called the Taste Gap. It's something Ira Glass talked about off NPR, and it was basically we get into creating something because we have good taste and we're interested and we know what it is we're trying to create, but then we come up against the fact that with our current skill set or our current level of experience, it's very we can't. So we kind of feel frustrated, and that whole challenge of getting past that frustration where you're not getting the results you want when you make something. Do you know what I mean?
It's hard.
So
oh my God. Yeah. I mean, it's really hard because I for me, again and again, it is pride that is in the way. It is like fully like it's pride with like a root of shame where it's like you feel like you should know this, but you don't. Or you feel like it should be easier. It should be coming easier to you, but it isn't. And it's, I don't know, there's, as much as you want to like ninja your mind around it, like there is, who is it? Byron Katie has the 4 questions, and one of them is like, who would you be without this thought? And if I just try and like macro it a little bit and think like, well, if you didn't have this obsessive thought of like, I don't know it, I'm bad, then you would just not, that wouldn't be a good or bad thing. You would just not know it, and then you'd figure out a way to know it. And then you would progress and start to make the thing that you want to make,
And did that start to feel fun to you? Like when you consciously switched your mind, like, is it a different emotional thing? Have you kind of totally made that circuit obsolete now?
Oh, I mean, it comes up all the time, but I'm better at dealing with it, I think, because I can now like, I can now identify when I'm just being proud or when I'm just being stubborn with myself and it's like, who are you doing this for? Like, no one is here.
Yeah.
And then I think giving myself permission to approach gear mostly gear, but approach things just like as a beginner and having it be just this neutral thing where it's not bad or good that you're a beginner, has helped me a lot. And I have to kind of check myself on that, but I just think it's important to like normalize nobody being a genius at first, like, and also people who are like geniuses put in so much work to like, realize their genius, because yes, maybe there's this natural talent, but like everybody has to learn the way that controller works. It's not that like he doesn't have this or they don't have this like inherent gene for knowing that specific piece of gear. It's like there's work that goes into that. And I think that's what can be so toxic. Like coming back to the social media side of it, that's what can be so toxic of seeing these people, showing their best and you thinking like, oh, they didn't even have to work to get there. And here I am like, I suck,
Yeah, totally. I'm with you. I gotta say that's been the funnest thing as well about this stream, like, my epic fail this morning, like, here's the links and nothing worked, and just kind of getting used to the fact. Actually, fun story for you, one of the first times I ever worked in I think it was United, which is like one of the most bling rooms in LA. I think it was a distressor. I'd never actually used a hardware one at this point in my career, but like I literally had to ask the assistant how to switch it out of bypass. And I got like the most scathing look on the planet.
But that sucks. Like, why does that have to be the culture at studios?
That was that particular assistant who was a pompous ass and who I'd never work with again. But I've worked with other assistants otherwise, and you'll definitely notice that the people who have that positive attitude are the people who you want around, and then those are the people that you hire. And then when you're wanting to do a freelance project, you're like, oh, remember that person at that place, like they were amazing. So yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, when you have this whole I think what you're banging up against. I feel like in a weird version, I went to an all boys school for a few years in the South Island of New Zealand in the early 90s, where it was like it was a rugby and that's it. And if the permissible eccentrics are the ones who did triathlon. So being like a specky dude who was into like weird British records wasn't too cool. Anyway, sorry, I'm regressing now. You're kind of triggering something.
Fascinating.
But I really think it's like this thing of very consciously, like, I just love what you're saying, like being a beginner, being open to answering or asking questions of yourself. I don't know if you found this on your Discord, but even on like Complete Producer Network, I try to DM people when they come in and say hi. And then there's you always get a few people who say like, oh, I'm just a beginner, so I don't really have anything to say. And it's like, no, please ask the questions. That's the entire point of being here, Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think like, you and I maybe didn't get that kind of kindness all the time. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
sure I had great experiences and mentors, but also like I had a lot of experiences where I was just like, you're being an asshole to me because because it's about you. It's not about me. It's about like you are seeing somebody not know something and then like because of your own insecurities pumping yourself up to be a jerk to them.
Yeah.
And I think like if we can be the versions of the nice assistant who's like, oh, this is how you get it out of bypass.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
Like, that changes people's lives, and that's important to me.
Yeah,
So.
it really does. Actually, it's funny. I'm just having a deeper flashback into that session, which is I also like had to spend the whole time running around this massive multi-studio complex trying to find my assistant, plug something in. And I went and spoke with the nice young lady who was on reception. I was like, have you seen blah, blah, blah? I'm trying to figure this out. And she was like, oh, let me have a look. And then after 5 minutes, she came in and she was fully in like heels and a receptionist outfit. And she like said, what are you trying to do? And she like sorted it all out on the patch bay for me. And I was like, oh my God, I had no idea you were an engineer.
Yeah.
So I was like, immediately, can I have you in my session? He can go and answer the phones, please.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
all attitude.
Yeah, there's so much of that too. I worked at Interscope for a minute when I first moved out here, and there was like that female in the assistant role that is just so like pinholed into that one thing.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's really unfortunate, and I don't know. I think it's changing, but slowly.
Totally, yeah.